The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive timelines, members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The twins arrive breathing. This is the first fact. Everything else, the grief, the wreckage, the specific architecture of loss that fills the Polis Massa medical bay like water filling a sealed room, comes second to this. Two small shapes in white cloth. Two sets of lungs doing the work they were made for. The universe does not pause. It never pauses. It simply presents the next fact and waits for the living to catch up. The medical droids move around Padmé with the cheerful efficiency of things that do not carry grief. They report in flat, informational tones, oxygenation stable, cardiac rhythm within normal parameters, blood pressure recovering. She listens to the numbers without tracking them. She is tracking different numbers. 2 heartbeats, small and fast and ferociously determined, audible through the bay's quiet as something close to music. She asks for the boy first. Luke is heavier than she expects, solid and warm in the specific way of a body that has just arrived and has not yet learned to be anything other than entirely itself. His hand finds her finger without searching for it. A reflex, not a choice, but her chest does not care about the distinction. The grip is extraordinary. He holds on as if holding on is the only thing. She memorizes the weight of him, the particular curve of his ear, the way his face organizes itself around its own breathing, working so hard at so small a task with such complete commitment. She hands him back. Leia is lighter, and still. She does not grip. She looks. Her eyes are dark and already carrying an expression that should not exist on a face that has existed for 11 minutes. A watchfulness. A quality of attention. As if she arrived already cataloging. Padmé looks at that face and sees something so familiar it is nearly unbearable, and she cannot tell if she is looking at herself, or at Anakin, or at someone else entirely, someone neither of them has produced yet, someone the galaxy has not met. She presses her lips to Leia's forehead. She hands her back. She does not speak to either of them. She memorizes them instead. A prolonged goodbye would unmake her, and she is not yet ready to be unmade. She is already, in the most interior room of herself, beginning to say goodbye. Obi-Wan sits across from her. His face is doing the thing that Jedi faces do after they have been through something that should have broken them and almost did. Precise and empty, worn to a particular smoothness, a mask that fits too well. He has been crying. He would not admit this if asked. She does not ask. He tells her about Mustafar. He tells it factually, without performance, which is the only mercy available. What Anakin did in the temple, what Anakin chose, what waited on that black volcanic shore for him when the betrayal was finished. He tells her about the high ground, and the decision, and leaving. He tells her the last part in a voice that has gone to almost nothing. I left him burning on the bank, he says. I couldn't. He stops. He begins again, because there is no version of this that does not need to be finished. I couldn't save him. And I don't believe he can be saved. He does not say he's dead. She understands this. She has known Obi-Wan Kenobi for 14 years, and she understands the precise difference between the things he says with certainty and the things he leaves open because closing them would be dishonest. She sits with it. Something structural has given way in her chest, not dramatically, not with the theatrical collapse that grief performs for audiences. Just a silent internal settling, the way a building settles after the load-bearing element has finally gone. She does not cry. Not yet. She does not have the luxury of yet. She asks 3 questions. Are the children safe? Yes. Is Palpatine aware of them? No. He believes she died. That you. He corrects himself. That there were no survivors. What do you need from me? He looks at her for a long moment. He was prepared for tears. He was prepared for denial, for rage, for the full range of what a person who has just lost everything is entitled to produce. He was not prepared for operational thinking. She watches him recalibrate in real time. He tells her what he needs. She listens. She begins to understand the shape of what comes next. Yoda's argument costs him. She can see it in the set of his ears, in the way his hands rest on his stick with the stillness of someone choosing their words, with the care of a person who knows the words are going to hurt. He does not frame it gently. He frames it militarily. Known, he says. Your face. Across the galaxy, known, every search for you, a thread. Every thread he does not finish. He does not need to. Every thread leads back to them. She understands this the way she has always understood political mathematics, instantly, completely, with no residual wish that the math were different. Padmé Amidala must be dead. While she breathes under her own name, her children breathe at risk. Then I'm dead, she says. What comes next? His ears move, a very small motion, grief passing through his face so quickly it might have been a trick of the light. He tells her about Luke, about Tatooine, the Lars family, about Leia, and Alderaan, and Bael's argument that a girl who already holds herself with peculiar gravity needs to grow up in a world of governance. Near a throne, armored in the legal protection of a royal house, she listens, she processes, she agrees, because Bael's argument is correct, and her agreement is not required for it to be correct. Then Bael brings the children in, and she holds them one last time. Luke first, one finger gripped without mercy. Leia second, those old, dark, watchful eyes. She presses her lips to each forehead, once each, and releases them. She does not linger. She cannot afford the weight of lingering. These are the two hardest physical acts of her life, harder than Geonosis, harder than the war, harder than every moment of every negotiation she has ever conducted in a room where people wanted her dead. There is nothing in her history of difficulty that prepared her for the specific cost of releasing these two small breathing facts back into other people's arms. She does it anyway. She does not look back. Bael's cruiser moves through hyperspace at a pace that feels criminal in its neutrality. Somewhere behind them, Naboo is getting ready to bury her. She finds the funeral feed in the communications bay by accident. The holonet cycling through its public broadcasts, and there is Theed on the screen, the city she has loved since before she could articulate what love was, and the canal boats and the white flowers laid in the streets in the old tradition, and her handmaidens walking in front of her sealed casket, with their faces composed in the precise architecture of performed mourning that is also. She understands suddenly, completely genuine. Saab is at the front. Saab, who wore her face for years, who stood in her place in rooms full of people who wanted to kill Padmé Amidala and walked out alive through a combination of courage and the specific expertise of a woman who loved someone enough to practice dying for them. Saab is giving her the exact funeral she would have wanted. The flowers are right. The procession route is the one she would have chosen. The camera cuts to Ariel. The procession winding through the streets of the city that made her. The place she was 14 years old and already leading. Already the thing the people needed her to be. Already learning that the gap between what you feel and what you show is not dishonesty, but governance. She weeps. Quietly, completely, she weeps for Anakin, and for the 10 years she imagined and will not have, and for the marriage that deserved better than a war, and for the children she just handed to other people's arms. She weeps for Saab, walking so straight. She weeps for Naboo. She allows herself exactly this much. Then, she wipes her face. She walks to the communication station. She switches off the feed. The screen goes dark and Naboo with it, and the canal boats and the flowers, and Saab straight back and all of it. Gone. She turns to find Bael standing a careful distance away, watching her with the expression of a man who has learned that what he sees in her face is the information she is willing to share. Your intelligence contacts, she says. The ones outside Senate channels. I want a full accounting. He blinks. He nods. He begins. She listens, and somewhere in the listening, she becomes someone else. Later, when the accounting is finished and the shape of the work has begun to be visible, Bael produces a small card. A blank identity document, unregistered, processable through any mid-rim customs authority. She holds it for a moment, feeling the specific weight of what she is about to do, not the card's weight, but the decisions, And then she takes a stylus and writes, in her own handwriting, small and precise, Ren Vos. She looks at it. This is who builds the thing Palpatine cannot stop. This is who survives. She looks at it. This is who builds the thing Palpatine cannot stop. This is who survives. She files it into her jacket pocket and does not look at it again. The operation begins at 0340 and is finished by 0412. 32 minutes. No weapons discharged. 2 Imperial troopers sedated. A freight shuttle borrowed from Bay 7 of an Imperial Customs depot. 41 crates of Bacta compound, loaded by hand in 17 minutes by people who have learned to work fast and quiet, because fast and quiet is what keeps you breathing. The shuttle returned to Bay 7 with its engine still warm, and its cargo absent. Padmé listens to the final confirmation come through the comm and marks the operation closed. She is 37 years old. She looks at the way iron looks its age, not diminished by what it has been through, but changed in its composition, harder in the specific places where it has been heated and cooled and heated again. Her hair is short now. It was long for the first 3 years of the alias, and then it became a liability. She cut it herself in the small mirror of a docking bay refresher on Rhodia and did not look at the floor when she was done. Her clothes are operational. Layers, pockets, nothing that catches on equipment or makes noise when she moves. The only object she carries that serves no operational purpose is in a small cabinet in her compartment, in a container she has not opened in 6 months. She knows exactly where it is. The communications room of the freighter Celeste bound is barely large enough for 4 people to stand without touching. 3 of her operatives are arranged around the hollow table. Davin, who handles signals and cipher work, is 24 years old and grew up on Ryloth and has never once in 2 years asked her where she came from. Res, her logistics coordinator. A former Imperial supply contractor who made the calculation 3 years ago that the arithmetic of conscience was more important than the arithmetic of salary and has not looked back. And Fen, who runs ground operations, an Onderonian veteran who has the specific quietness of a person who has survived something they do not discuss. They are competent. More than competent. They defer to her not because she has established dominance, but because she has never, in the time they have worked together, been wrong about a threat assessment, and they have learned to treat this the way you treat any reliable instrument, with the confidence that comes from consistent accuracy. The Bacta compounds reach the field hospital by 0600 if the courier route holds, she says. If the Geralt checkpoint runs an extended sweep tonight, which they may, the alternate route adds 4 hours. I want contingency confirmation from the Geralt contact before we stand down. Davin nods. Res is already updating the logistics record. Fen says nothing, which means he agrees. The Bacta will reach people who need it. The Imperial garrison will eventually discover it is gone. The trail will lead nowhere. They will begin again. It is Res who says the name. He is running through the broader intelligence summary, and he mentions the Kessel Cell in the way that bad news gets mentioned when the person delivering it is not sure how to size the loss. Quickly, factually, as if speed reduces the weight of it. 19 dead. The cell destroyed. Vader personally led the strike. She pulls the casualty record. It is a document she maintains herself by hand. She adds all 19 names, name, date, location, cause, Vader, Darth, direct action, Kessel Cell. She closes the record. Standing orders on Category 1 assets remain in effect, she says. If Vader is confirmed on site, the operation aborts. Every cell. No exceptions. She looks at Fen. The Kessel Cell did not receive updated standing orders in time. That is the failure point. I want it closed. She does not spend more than 2 minutes thinking about Vader. She has built a professional relationship with the idea of him over 9 years. A Category 1 threat. Maximum danger. Avoid at all costs. She has filed him under impossible to defeat and built her operations around that filing with the same pragmatic discipline she brings to every other constraint the galaxy has placed on her work. She is, of course, somewhat more specific about Vader than she has ever told anyone. She knows his operational patterns with an intimacy that goes beyond his intercepts and after-action reports. She knows the specific impatience that lives beneath the command structure, the compulsive forward movement, the inability to delegate a hunt that has personally engaged him. She knows these things the way you know the structural flaws of a building you once lived in, not from blueprints, but from years of walking its halls. She does not examine why she knows them as precisely as she does. She uses the knowledge and moves on. The freighter winds down for the night cycle at 0500. Her crew cycles out in shifts, Davin last, pausing in the doorway of the communications room to confirm the Garrel contact has responded and the courier route is clear. She tells him to get some sleep. He does. She listens to the ship go quiet around her, the hum of the engines dropping to its lowest register, the particular quality of silence that a vessel in low power mode produces, inhabited, pressurized, alive in its machinery. But still. Her compartment is small enough that she can reach the desk from the bunk without standing. She does not sit on the bunk. She sits at the desk and works for another 2 hours. Cipher analysis. A supply route projection for the next 6 weeks. A recruitment assessment on a mid-level Imperial Customs officer on Rhodia who has been making quiet inquiries that might mean he is ready to be approached, or might mean he is an IS-plant. She writes her assessment, adds it to the relevant file, and flags it for 3 more weeks of observation before action. At 00720, she sits very still. She does not take out the Japor snippet. She knows exactly where it is. Not comfort. Orientation, a fixed point. Bale's latest dispatch is in the cipher queue. At the end, as almost an afterthought, in the deliberate understated way that Bail Organa has developed for the things that matter most, a single short paragraph. L. built his own speeder from salvage components. Owen cannot identify the source of 3 of the parts, which L. apparently sourced himself at age 9 through means Owen declines to describe. B. produced a position paper on Outer Rim trade policy last month. 3 adult senators reviewed it at a delegation meeting. They found it, I'm told, surprisingly difficult to refute. They are well. She reads it. She reads it again. Bale is trying not to say she is exactly like you. She can feel the shape of the sentence he is not writing. She allows herself 30 seconds. She sits with what it feels like to know that somewhere on a desert world a boy is building things out of whatever the desert offers him, and somewhere on a green world a girl is making adult senators reconsider their positions. She lets it be real. She lets it land. Then she closes the dispatch. She encrypts it. She files it in the secure partition that contains every communication from Bale she has received in 9 years. She is reaching for the next item in the queue when the sensor alert pings. Low priority. The automated system has flagged an Imperial relay station in the system. A burst transmission. High frequency. Activated in the last 2 minutes. Her comm officer has already filtered it to the standard decryption queue. A note in the system. Sector report, probable routine, analysis queued for 0900 review. She sets a reminder for 0900. She closes the panel. She goes to sleep at 000741 with the deliberate intentionality of a woman who knows that rest is an operational requirement. And the transmission sits in the decryption queue in the dark, waiting for morning, carrying what it carries. The transmission decrypts at 0847. Davin pulls it from the queue with professional detachment, a habitual skim, flagging the relevant and discarding the administrative noise. Garrison rotation schedules. Supply manifest approvals. Standard Imperial bureaucratic texture. The language of an institution that documents its own mediocrity with remarkable thoroughness. Then the appended file. Davin flags it without listening to it. The notation reads, secondary attachment, partial corruption, possible intelligence value, visual recording, 15 seconds. Subject, Vader tactical engagement, rebel holdouts, ship corridor. He routes it to her analysis queue with a brief note, evasion planning resource, your call on priority. She pulls it at 0912. She opens it expecting a blurry holo of a man with a red lightsaber, moving fast in a dark corridor. She has seen this before. She presses play. The recording is poor. The resolution was never high, and the transmission corruption has reduced it further. A 15-second window of gray-green hollow imagery ship corridor lighting. 4 rebel soldiers. 1 black armored figure at the far end of the corridor, lightsaber already lit, moving through them with the compressed efficiency of something that stopped needing to be careful about this particular category of problem a long time ago. She watches it once, tracking his angles. Right flank open at extension, as before. Speed at the upper range of her documented estimates. She watches it a second time, running combat pattern cross-reference in her head against the archive. On the third viewing, she stops the recording. 12 seconds in. The third soldier, disarmed, he moves toward the finish. The technique is standard, the lightsaber work efficient. Nothing she has not documented before. But before the final sequence, there is a step. Left foot. Forward and lateral simultaneously, weight transferring to the outside edge. A brief, fractional delay in the pivot that follows it, as if the body needs that specific half-second to complete a mechanical handshake before the rotation fires. It is not in any lightsaber form she has studied. It belongs to no formal doctrine. It is an idiosyncrasy. A habit so deeply encoded it has become invisible to the person performing it. She has seen this step thousands of times. In the small gymnasium of their Coruscant apartment, where he trained before dawn because he could not sleep and needed to move. In the garden at Varakino, slow-motion practice in the afternoon light. Running sequences against imaginary opponents with the focused abstraction of a person working something out. He performed this step every single time. She had asked him about it once. He had looked faintly embarrassed, which on Anakin was an expression of such rarity that she had memorized the exact shape of it. Left over from the pod racer controls, he had told her. The left foot was the brake. My body still flinches toward it when I need to stabilize. She is looking at the frozen image on the screen. The black armored figure mid-stride, 1 foot extended, weight wrong in exactly the right way. She gets up. She walks to the door. She walks back. She sits down. She plays it again. The step. Again. She closes the file. She tells Davan she is conducting an extended tactical analysis of Vader's combat patterns for evasion planning and needs the analysis room sealed for the rest of the morning. She seals the room and begins. The first line of inquiry is chronological. She pulls the Imperial public record, specifically the emergence of Darth Vader as a documented Imperial asset. He appears in official communications on a precise date, 2 days after Palpatine's address to the Senate declaring the Galactic Empire. She maps it against what she knows of the timeline. Mustafar was weeks before Palpatine's address. There was time. Enough time for a surviving body to be recovered, to be brought somewhere classified, to be reconstructed. She assumed, for 9 years, that the Empire had recruited its enforcer from existing Imperial infrastructure. She assumed this because the alternative required Obi-Wan to be wrong about what he left on that bank, and Obi-Wan is rarely wrong about things he has witnessed with his own eyes. Obi-Wan said, "I don't believe he can be saved." He did not say, "I know he is dead." The second line. Technical. She composes a burst communication to a former Republic weapons engineer named Cale Brist, now working reluctant Imperial contracts on Corellia, who can access classified technical documentation. The request is brief. Any public-facing documentation on Vader's life support systems. Cover purpose. Evasion and vulnerability planning. She moves immediately to the third line. Voice pattern analysis. She strips the modulation layer from 11 ISB intercepts using the analysis room's audio forensic software. What remains is heavily degraded, but the cadence survives. The stress pattern. The rhythmic fingerprint that persists below the frequency manipulation. She opens a second audio file. She has stored this one for years in a personal partition she has never flagged for operational use. An archived Senate address, 19 BB. Senator Anakin Skywalker, speaking to a half-empty chamber on a procedural matter, his voice carrying the particular impatience of a man who found the Senate's processes genuinely baffling. She plays both recordings simultaneously through the comparison software. She plays them again. She plays them a third time. She sits very still. Brist's response comes through the dead drop at 1340. She pulls it and reads it standing. The life support suit was constructed at a classified Imperial medical facility. The patient required total reconstruction of the respiratory system, the circulatory support infrastructure, and the motor function apparatus following. And here Brist has copied the clinical language of the original document directly: catastrophic thermal injury consistent with lava proximity exposure. Construction was completed in a 24-hour window under conditions the document describes as extreme medical urgency. The patient survived against all projected probability thresholds. She reads the phrase again: lava proximity exposure. Mustafar is a volcanic world. Its surface is liquid rock. A man left burning on its bank, left because his survival was projected at 0 and the Jedi who loved him could not watch the remainder. A man left there by someone who believed leaving was an act of mercy, would present with exactly this injury profile if someone arrived after the Jedi departed and extracted him before the burns finished the work. She takes a notepad from the desk drawer, physical paper, nothing that enters a system, nothing that can be queried or recovered or traced. She takes a stylus. She writes in her own handwriting, small and precise, making each word carry its exact weight and no more. Anakin Skywalker did not die on Mustafar. Palpatine took him. This is what Palpatine made of him. She reads what she has written. She reads it again. She folds the paper once, with care. She folds it again. She holds it in both hands. The analysis room is very quiet. Somewhere forward she can hear the faint sound of Davan running a cipher rotation. A methodical, repetitive sound. The sound of the work continuing as it always continues. Indifferent to what she has just learned. She holds the paper until her hands stop shaking. They take longer than she expects. She erases everything methodically. Every query she ran on the analysis system, pulled from the log, overwritten, the system restored to its pre-session state. She takes the notepad page with her when she leaves. In the corridor she passes Fen, who nods at her. She nods back. Her face gives him nothing. In her compartment she does something she has not done in 6 months. She opens the small cabinet. She takes out the Japor snippet, the original, the Tatooine original, the one carved by a 9-year-old boy who was trying to give a queen something to protect her from the things he could not yet name, but could already feel gathering at the edges of the universe he had only just entered. She holds it. The compartment is dark. She has not turned on the light. She sits on the bunk in the dark with the Japor snippet in her palm and what she knows in her mind, and the very specific silence that exists in the moment before something permanent changes. She does not move for a very long time. The memories arrive in order, without permission, without mercy. Anakin at 22, on the transport to Naboo, already catastrophic in his damage, not in his beauty, though the beauty was real, but in the specific quality of the wound he carried, the way it organized everything around it. She had seen it then. She had named it to herself and chosen him anyway, because the wound was not the whole of him, and she believed. With the full force of a woman who had spent her adolescence believing she could fix broken institutions through the application of sufficient intelligence and will, that love was the variable that changed the equation. Anakin at the Lars homestead, returning from the desert with his mother's body, and the look on his face that she had called grief, and smoothed over, and held him through. She had not let herself look at the other thing in that face. She had seen it. She has spent 9 years wondering whether different choices in that moment would have led to different outcomes, and she has spent 9 years arriving at the same conclusion. Probably not. Palpatine had been working on him for years by then. She was working with her hands against a machine. Anakin in the firelight at Varakino, saying she was the only good thing. The specific quality of the way he said it, not romantic declaration, not performance, but statement of fact delivered by a person who believed it completely, and was frightened by how completely he believed it. She had understood, even then, that this was not healthy, that love should not be the only good thing, that a person who has reduced their entire experience of goodness to a single point is a person whose entire experience of goodness can be destroyed by removing that point. She had understood this. She had loved him anyway. Anakin on the landing pad on Mustafar, his hands around her throat. She has not permitted herself this memory in 9 years. She has managed it from a distance, acknowledged its existence, filed it under known trauma, do not approach without preparation, and she has not approached it. She approaches it now, because the paper in her pocket and the snippet in her hands have made the managed distance collapse, and the memory is here whether she permits it or not. His face. That is what she cannot stop returning to, not the hands. The hands she has processed, has integrated into the architecture of what he had already become by that moment, can account for within the logic of the dark side, and what it does to a person's capacity for restraint. The hands she understands. His face. The expression on it was not rage. She has been in rooms with people who wanted to kill her, and she has seen rage, and she knows its texture. This was something else. Something that believed what it was doing was love, that the hands around her throat were a form of protection, that the force compressing her airway was the action of a man trying to save something by the only means he had left. She sits with this for a long time. She lets it be what it is. The tears stop at some point she does not mark. They stop because they are finished, which is different. She sits in the quiet aftermath and feels the specific texture of what is left when grief has run its full course through a body. Not emptiness, not peace, but a kind of cleared ground. Everything that was going to fall has fallen. What remains is the structure underneath. She reconstructs the timeline, not from grief, from forensic habit. The same part of her that ran cipher analysis at 0912 and voice pattern comparisons at 1100 engages now with the same professional attention, because this is what she does with information she cannot change. She maps it until she understands its architecture completely. Because understanding an architecture completely is the first step toward finding the place where it fails. Palpatine and the Senate appointments that gave him access to a traumatized boy from Tatooine. Not accidental, a specific targeting decision, the identification of a high-value psychological asset, and the methodical construction of a grooming relationship across years. The manufactured kindness. The private meetings. The Jedi Council had noted those meetings with suspicion and never quite acted, because the Council's relationship with Anakin was itself too damaged by that point, too contaminated with ambivalence and qualified trust, to function as the counterweight it should have been. Then the insertion of specifically tailored fears. Her safety. Her death. A man whose capacity for love was already pathological in its intensity, already compressing under pressure, already organized around a single point. And Palpatine found that point and applied leverage to it with the precision of an engineer who has studied the load-bearing specifications and knows exactly how many newtons before the joint fails. She was the weapon. She understands this now with a clarity that 9 years of managed grief had kept just out of focus. Not her body, not her voice, not anything she chose or did or said. The idea of her. The fear of losing her. Palpatine had manufactured her death as a psychological event, had constructed it in Anakin's mind as an inevitable, preventable tragedy, before it became a literal one. He had pointed Anakin's love at a lever and let the fear of grief pull it. She was used. Completely, precisely, without her knowledge or consent, in a manipulation she had no opportunity to counter because she did not know it was happening. This is when she stops grieving and starts hating. Not Anakin. Palpatine. With the specific cold architectural hatred of a person who understands exactly how they were used and has sufficient intelligence to trace every step of the mechanism. It is not a hot hatred. It does not make her want to scream or throw things or perform her rage for an audience. It makes her very quiet and very clear and very certain about what the next years of her life are going to be organized around. She gets up from the floor of her compartment. She has slid down the bulkhead at some point during the reconstruction, is sitting on the floor rather than the bunk, which she notes with the distant practical interest of a person cataloging their own condition. And she goes to the small sink and runs cold water and washes her face. She looks in the mirror for a long time. She is cataloging, noting what the 9 years have changed in the face looking back at her, what they have taken, what they have compressed and hardened and moved to a place where it is still present, but differently organized. The face is not what it was on the holonet feeds from Naboo, in the Senate footage, in the diplomatic photographs that used to appear in the Republic's news publications beside whatever policy initiative she was advancing that week. That face was a public instrument, maintained, deployed, understood as a tool of governance. This face has not been deployed publicly in 9 years. It has been used in other ways. She notes the specific thing that the last 6 hours have added. She names it to herself. Clearly, without softening, she knows what is inside that suit. She knows how it thinks. She knows what it fears and what it cannot stop wanting, and exactly where the load-bearing walls of its constructed identity are located. She has spent 9 years building expertise in Imperial threat architecture. She has just discovered that her deepest area of expertise is not, as she believed, a dead category. She makes her decision in the mirror, not dramatically. There is no speech, no declaration, no performance of resolution for an imaginary audience. The decision is simply present, fully formed, placed in her operational framework with the same clarity she brings to every tactical conclusion. I know every word of what is inside that armor. I am going to use all of it. She goes to the analysis room at 0200 and works for 4 hours. And what she produces is a document that does not reference Vader at all. It references Anakin Skywalker. She writes from memory, his tactical patterns catalogued with dates and operational contexts she witnessed directly. His combat tell, the left foot step before the pivot, which she now understands is not just a habit, but a measurable, documentable, exploitable delay in his engagement sequence. His decision-making under pressure. He escalates. He moves toward contact. He cannot resist a personal challenge. He treats the option of not engaging a worthy opponent as something close to a moral failure. His blind spots. Non-force users as threats. Political complexity as a battlefield. Patience as a combat instrument. He has no framework for an opponent who does not fight him directly, who fights the institution he serves instead. Who treats his personal capabilities not as a wall to break through, but as a terrain feature to route around. His deep structure weaknesses. The arrogance about his own uniqueness, the bone-deep conviction that what he is has no equivalent. The compulsive need to be personally present for anything that matters to him. The tunnel vision that activates when something catches him and does not let go. She cross-references these against Vader's documented operational record, every pattern she has assembled over 9 years of treating him as a threat to be avoided. She is looking for the constants, the places where Anakin Skywalker is still running the Dark Lord's strategies unchanged, unexamined, so deeply habitual they have survived 19 years and a suit of black armor. The constants are extensive. He has changed the armor. He kept the same mind. Just before she leaves the analysis room, she takes the notepad page from her jacket pocket, the one with the small, precise handwriting. The conclusion she wrote in the moment after the evidence made denial structurally impossible, and holds it over the room's waste incinerator. She does not burn it in anger. She is not angry. She burns it in ceremony, which is different, a deliberate marking of transition. The physical destruction of the last artifact from the person who sat on the floor and shook. She watches it catch. She watches it become nothing. She stays until the ash is cold, which takes longer than she expects. And she watches every second of it with the full attention of a woman who believes that the things you choose to witness are the things you are accountable for. Then she goes back to her compartment and sleeps for 4 hours with the intentionality of a soldier who has a great deal of work to do in the morning and has learned, over 9 years, that the work degrades significantly if the body running it is not maintained. The ISB informant's name is Tarek Solm. He is 26 years old, a signals analyst on the staff of Moff Korsh Panaka's Sector Intelligence Division, and he has been passing strategic assignment data to the rebellion for 14 months in exchange for a promise of extraction that Padmé has every intention of keeping. He is not ideologically motivated. He is financially motivated. And then he was morally motivated after the first 6 months showed him enough of what the ISB actually does to the people it targets, and now he is both. The most reliable combination she has found. The transmission comes through a dead drop relay at 1340. She decrypts it in 11 minutes. She reads it twice, professionally. And then she reads it a third time with the specific attention she has been paying to a particular category of Imperial intelligence since the analysis room 4 weeks ago. Operation designation, Iron Shroud. Assignment, Vader, Darth. Target, Vela Network, Mid-Rim Supply Interdiction Cells. Method, Ambush. Garrel Freight Depot 7. Trigger, Compromised Rebel Supply Contact. Turned ISB asset 6 weeks prior. Parameters, Rebel cell expected to move on cache of starfighter components within 72-hour window. Full deployment, 2 Star Destroyers, ground troops pre-staged. She sets the datapad down. She runs his decision tree from memory, from 4 weeks of focused study and 19 years of accumulated understanding. He has identified bait that matches a genuine rebel need. He will be personally present because he has decided this operation is significant. He will bring overwhelming force because he has never had to consider resource constraints. He will position himself at the front because he always positions himself at the front. He is also, in doing all of this, leaving the moon's far side unattended. She picks up the datapad. She begins to plan. The counter-operation has 3 layers. Layer 1 takes her 40 minutes. She has an ISMOL already identified in her mid-rim supply network, confirmed 3 weeks ago when she fed him minor disinformation and watched it appear in an ISB sector summary 8 days later. She routes a message designed to look like a panicked internal communication through a cell the mole has access to. The content: the Vela network intends to hit Garrel as the ISB anticipated, but the timeline has been advanced by 36 hours. The cell is moving now. They are committed. The mole will transmit within hours. Vader will receive confirmation that his prey is incoming. He will be at Garrel, personally positioned near the freight bays, waiting for ships that will not come. Layer 2 she has been building for 3 months without knowing when she would use it. An Imperial officer transport is running in low orbit on the far side of the Garrel system, on a routine personnel rotation, by every external indicator, the most boring ship in the system. This is precisely why it is carrying classified ISB personnel files, the confirmed identities of 15 Imperial informants currently embedded in Senate offices across the core, and the names of 3 planetary governors functioning as ISB assets while maintaining the public appearance of reluctant Imperial cooperation. These files are worth more to the Alliance than any starfighter component cache in the sector. With those files, she can burn the informants, approach the governors with what she knows, and expand her intelligence network into Senate offices that have been dark to her for 2 years. She selects her extraction team with care. 12 people, all of whom have conducted shipboard infiltration before, none of whom know the full scope of what they are taking or why. They know the target vessel, the access point, the file location, the extraction protocol. They know they have a 9-minute window. They do not know about Garrel, or Vader, or the 3-layer architecture they are operating inside. Layer 3 she handles personally. The moon's communications array has a maintenance access panel on its eastern face. She placed a timed detonator behind it 6 weeks ago, when she identified the turned courier and began building the possibility of this operation in the space where a response plan should be. The detonator is calibrated to T+47 minutes from Vader's confirmed landing at Garrel Depot. At T+47 minutes, he will have been waiting long enough to understand that the ships are not coming. He will be moving toward the door of the depot's main structure to personally oversee pursuit operations, because when something goes wrong, Anakin Skywalker moves toward it. And he has never stopped being Anakin Skywalker in the ways that matter for this calculation. He will be outside. She is not trying to kill him. She has thought about this with clinical precision and arrived at the same conclusion each time. She cannot afford for him to know, yet, that someone is thinking specifically about his vulnerabilities. A kill attempt that fails, and it would fail, tells him something she is not ready for him to know. It shows her hand before the game is in the right position. She wants him to feel outmaneuvered. She wants him to feel the specific, unfamiliar sensation of someone having been smarter than him, having read him before he finished setting the board. She wants that sensation to lodge in him like a splinter. She monitors both operations from the communications room. At 0214, her extraction team boards the officer transport through a maintenance access point. The transport crew is running a standard night rotation, reduced staffing. the specific institutional drowsiness of people who have been doing the same overnight shift for 4 months without incident. The team moves through the vessel in under 6 minutes, copies the relevant file partitions to a portable drive. At 0223 they withdraw. At 0228 they are clear. 9 minutes and 40 seconds. She notes the 40 seconds over the projected window. At 0241, a burst communication confirms Vader's landing at Garrel. She marks the time. She begins counting. At T plus 47 minutes, the moon's communications array detonates. Confirmation comes through 14 minutes later. Array destroyed. Adjacent hangar damaged. 2 TIE fighters lost. Vader at 53 meters from the blast point. Unharmed, she reads the distance. 53 meters. 3 meters outside her projected range. She notes the variance and files it. Her team is celebrating when she returns to the operations room. Ress has found something that might be classified as wine in the freighter's storage bay. Fenn is allowing himself an expression that in another life might have been a grin. Davin is already running the decryption sequence on the copied files, working with the focused energy of a person who has been told there is good intelligence inside something and cannot wait to find out how good. She does not celebrate. She stands at the edge of the room and watches them and permits herself to note, clinically, that the operation executed correctly. Then she pulls up the threat projection matrix and begins running Vader's probable response pattern. He is going to want to know who did this. He is going to want to know personally, which means he is going to take the investigation from ISB, which means ISB's methodical, patient, pattern recognition approach to finding her will be displaced by his approach, which is faster and more aggressive and less likely to find her through forensic analysis, but more likely to find her through the Force, the variable she cannot fully model. She needs his attention. She has it now. The risk calculation is the same as it has always been. The more he focuses on her, the more the ISB is sidelined. The more her network operates in the space his personal obsession creates. This has always been the trade. She made it weeks ago when she began constructing Iron Shroud's counter. At 0412, an Imperial priority communication from Garrel clears through Solm's intercept channel. She reads it standing. Vader, personally, requesting every available file the ISB holds on the Vela network. Not a delegation to a subordinate. Not a tasking order through the chain of command. Him, directly, with his own authentication code on the request. She reads this with the exact feeling of a chess player watching an opponent make the move she predicted 3 turns ago. He is interested. He is personally, specifically, tunnel vision, interested. Which means the Empire's mid-rim operational effectiveness just degraded in ways that will compound over the coming weeks as his attention narrows to this single target. She files the intercept. She closes the panel. She goes back to work. The cipher wheel is 12 centimeters in diameter. It is made of a Durasteel alloy produced exclusively by a single manufacturer in Theed's industrial quarter. A small metalworking house producing precision security instruments for the Naboo royal court since before the Trade Federation blockade. The alloy has a specific composition, higher chromium content than standard Imperial-grade Durasteel, a trace element profile that a materials analyst with the right equipment can identify in under an hour. The wheel's teeth are hand-filed, not machine-cut. Every wheel produced by this manufacturer is slightly different from every other. Padmé had not considered the wheel traceable. She had been wrong by exactly 3 inference steps. The cache capture was a minor interdiction, a rebel equipment drop on an outer rim resupply point, hit by an Imperial patrol through routine coverage. The patrol found equipment, no personnel, no useful documents. They cataloged it and sent the inventory up the chain, where it sat in a regional IS processing queue for 3 weeks before a flag algorithm caught the alloy composition and routed it to Vader's task force. She does not know any of this yet. He holds the wheel for longer than he needs to. This is the observation his intelligence officer makes, privately, and does not record anywhere and does not mention to anyone, because making private observations about Darth Vader is a habit that tends to shorten careers in ways that are not about promotion. The Lord Vader has been reviewing the Vela network material for 2 hours in the task force briefing room aboard the Inexorable. and he has moved through everything else with the efficient professional attention of a commander processing tactical information. The patrol reports, the cell network mapping, the ISB analysis of the supply interdiction pattern, all of it received, assessed, filed in whatever internal architecture he uses to store operational data. Then the cipher wheel. He picks it up. He turns it over. He runs a thumb, the mechanical approximation of a thumb, the suit's haptic sensors translating surface texture into data he can register but not feel the way a hand feels, across the hand-filed teeth. He stands there. He is very still. The briefing room is very quiet. His intelligence officer reviews a datapad with great focus. He sets the wheel down. He does not say anything about it. He moves to the next item in the briefing. But twice during the remainder of the session his attention returns to it. Not obviously, not in a way that invites comment, and when the briefing concludes and his staff files out, he leaves the wheel on the table, rather than returning it to the evidence container with everything else. The Force is doing something it does not usually do. It is not providing information. It is providing the sensation of information just out of reach, the pressure of something known but not yet surfaced, a word assembling itself from the wrong end, meaning arriving before language does. He has managed this kind of force pull for 19 years by treating it as noise, static in a system that sometimes generates signal, and sometimes generates grief dressed as signal. He treats it as noise. He begins running tactical queries on Naboo-adjacent supply systems before he fully understands why. Supervisor Seth Marin presents his findings on a Tuesday, in a mid-level IS briefing room on Coruscant, to an audience of 4 senior analysts and 1 Imperial Security Coordinator attending on behalf of a superior who found the meeting insufficiently important to attend personally. Marin is 31 years old. He has been tracking the Vela network for 8 months. He is not a dramatic man. He presents his findings the way he has always presented findings, in sequence, with evidence, with clearly marked distinctions between what the data confirms and what it suggests, and what he is inferring. The tactical signature of the Vela network, he explains, has 4 consistent characteristics: non-kinetic methodology, preference for infiltration, sedation, and information operations over direct engagement. Rhodia and Ryloth supply contacts, maintained with a consistency suggesting personal relationships rather than transactional sourcing. A mathematical structure in recovered cipher fragments not derived from any known rebel cryptographic standard. And an operational tempo that runs at precisely the pace of imperial bureaucratic processing. As if the network coordinator has an accurate internal model of how long it takes ISB to identify and escalate a threat, and is consistently staying 1 cycle ahead. The cipher mathematics are where it gets specific. He has traced the encoding logic to a formal diplomatic cipher system used by Republic senatorial staff before the Empire abolished the Senate's communications sovereignty. Specifically, to an advanced cryptographic instruction program offered to senior senatorial office staff, discontinued in 19 BB. The profile this produces is narrow, female, based on 3 voice-adjacent pattern fragments. Estimated age, mid to late 30s. Former Republic political infrastructure, senior level. Operational discipline consistent with someone who has been running cover identities for close to a decade, and learned it by doing it, and has refined her methodology through survival rather than instruction. Analytical intelligence at the extreme upper range of anything he has modeled for a non-ISB operative. He has a list of 400 people who fit the demographic profile. Padmé Amidala is on the list. Entry 247, sorted alphabetically. Status, deceased, 19 BB, Polis Massa Medical Facility, confirmed Imperial records. He has not flagged her. He is not going to flag a dead woman. But she is on the list, because the list was generated by the data, and the data does not know she is dead. He is 4 inferences away from her. He does not know this. Vader meditates in the dark of his personal quarters at 0200 and does not intend to see anything. He has trained himself against the specific vulnerability of Force clarity in meditation, the way genuine openness in the Force sometimes delivers not strategic insight but personal material, grief dressed as vision, the past arriving in the present with the full sensory weight of something that is still happening. He manages this with structure, with specific mental architecture, with the disciplined application of the dark side as a pressure system that keeps the sealed chambers sealed. The vision comes anyway. Water falling over stone. The specific acoustic quality of a high waterfall in an enclosed space. The way the sound fills the air from all directions simultaneously. He knows this sound. The suit's audio systems cannot produce it accurately. They process and reconstruct rather than receive. But his nervous system carries the original below the suit's data layer. Then the smell. The suit gives him atmospheric composition data, particulate analysis, chemical signatures, humidity readings. It does not give him the experience of the thing. But the memory arrives without the suit's mediation. Lake country air, warm and green and faintly mineral, with the specific floral undertone of a plant that grows only on the banks of the Naboo Lake country, and nowhere else in the galaxy that he has ever been. Then light. The quality of afternoon light through old stone windows. The color that Naboo sandstone goes in the late afternoon. A specific amber rose that exists nowhere else. And he is not seeing it. He is remembering seeing it. And the difference between those two things is the whole of his life. He opens his eyes. He is in his quarters on the inexorable, and the memory is finished, and the sealed chambers are sealed again. He sits with the residual of it, the specific weight of what the dark side compresses but cannot destroy, and manages it back into its container with the practiced efficiency of 19 years. Then he is at his tactical terminal. He is running queries on Naboo supply systems, Naboo adjacent hyperspace corridors, rebel cell activity within 4 sectors of the Naboo system. He is doing this before he has consciously decided to do it. His hands are already working. He tells himself this is pattern recognition. The Garrel operation demonstrated Naboo-linked cipher methodology. The Naboo system is a logical tactical follow-up. This is standard operational logic. He does not examine the other explanation. He never examines the other explanation. He has 19 years of practice not examining it. She receives the intelligence about the shifted search pattern on a Wednesday evening, and she is very still for a moment in the specific way she is still when something has not gone the way she modeled it. He is not sweeping the mid-rim with broad strokes anymore. He is running targeted queries. Naboo adjacent systems. Old Republic supply corridors. He is following instinct rather than data, which means she cannot track the search the way she tracks a data query. She cannot see exactly what he has found because what he has found is not a document. It is a feeling. She runs the quiet audit immediately. Every asset in her operational chain, every piece of equipment she has deployed in the last 6 months, every communication she has sent through every relay and dead drop and cutout in her network. She finds the cipher wheel gap in 14 minutes. A missing item from the captured cache, written off as equipment loss at the time. She wrote it off. She did not consider the alloy. She did not consider that a materials analyst with the right equipment could look at a hand-filed Naboo-manufactured security instrument and know, within a 3-inference chain, where it came from. She sits with this. She sits with the specific sensation of a mistake. Not catastrophic, not yet, but real. A gap in her model that she did not see before it was exploited. She has been running this operation for 9 years on the confidence of someone who has never made an unrecoverable error, and she has just been reminded of the distinction between confidence and invulnerability. She cannot model what the Force showed him when he held it. This is the variable she cannot quantify, and she cannot afford unquantifiable variables in the position she is approaching. She pulls up a star chart. She finds Naboo. She looks at it for a long time, the small green icon, the system she has not entered in 9 years, the place that is the origin point of everything she was and everything she became, and everything she chose to become instead. He is moving toward her on instinct. If she waits for him to complete the picture on his own timeline, he will arrive in a context she does not control. She does not operate in contexts she does not control. She needs to choose when the confrontation happens. She needs to choose where. She needs to choose what she gains from it, because this confrontation is going to happen regardless, and the only variable still available to her is whether she walks into it or is walked into it. She selects Naboo on the star chart. Then she begins to plan. Corson has been with her for 3 years. He is 34 years old, originally from Corellia, and he came to the rebellion through proximity to consequence. His sister was on Alderaan when an Imperial garrison suppressed a labor dispute with a thoroughness that the official report described as proportionate response, and that Corson, who arrived 2 days after, described as something he has not found words for since. He found Padmé's network 8 months later. He is brave, methodical, and possessed of the specific loyalty that comes from a person who has already decided what they are willing to die for, and made their peace with the decision. She has chosen him because he is brave enough to hold under initial questioning. Because his ignorance of the wider operation means he cannot expose anything beyond the bait itself. Because the toxin capsule in his back molar will make the rest fast if it comes to that. She briefs him in a safe house on the outskirts of Jeddah City. She tells him he is carrying sensitive intelligence to a sympathizer contact on Naboo. She tells him the route, the contact protocol, the cover story. She tells him the intelligence package, carefully constructed, internally consistent, specific enough to pass an ISB stress examination, describes a meeting between the rebel coordinator and a sympathizer network, Lake Country, Varakino Estate, 72 hours from now. She does not tell him he is intended to be captured. She has examined this decision from every angle available to her. The operational logic is sound. He cannot perform ignorance under interrogation if he knows he is bait, and ISB has instruments for identifying performed ignorance that are very effective. His ignorance must be real. She has made her peace with this. She has been making peace with the things she cannot afford to be squeamish about for 9 years, and the peace does not get easier or harder. It simply gets more familiar. What she can control is the outcome on the other side of his capture. The bait must be credible, the window tight enough that he is not held long, and the toxin capsule in his molar is there if the alternative becomes unacceptable. She has thought about this carefully. She would rather not use it. She has not decided she will not. Corson takes the intelligence package. He shakes her hand. He tells her the cause is worth it, meaning the general it, not knowing how specifically it applies to this moment. She watches him leave. She stands in the doorway of the safe house until he rounds the corner and is gone. Then she moves. The convoy is already in transit. 3 rebel transport ships, running with minimal power signatures, carrying hyperspace navigational computers essential for the Alliance's fleet expansion, the most critical single shipment in the sector this year. Their route brings them through the outer Naboo system in approximately 96 hours. The Naboo system's Imperial presence is light, a single Star Destroyer on rotating patrol, rarely stationary. If that Star Destroyer is parked in geosynchronous orbit above Naboo's capital, chasing a ghost in the Lake Country, the convoy passes through the outer system undetected. She has run the calculation 14 times. It holds. She arrives on Naboo 2 days ahead. The customs clearance is a civilian document, forged through a Corellian transit authority whose record-keeping she has been exploiting for 2 years. The shuttle is a private charter, unremarkable, the kind of vessel that arrives on Naboo 100 times a day, carrying tourists and business travelers and returning residents. The face she is showing is 9 years older than the face in any Imperial database associated with Padmé Amidala, and the hair is short and dark, and she is wearing the practical clothes of a mid-level logistics coordinator on a site survey. No one looks at her twice. She lands at a small commercial dock on the Lake Country's northern shore, and walks to a transport rental facility and drives herself south along the lake road, as the afternoon light does what afternoon light on Naboo always does, which is to say it commits completely. Amber and gold and slightly too beautiful to look at directly, the way certain true things are. She gives herself 90 seconds at the window. She counts them. She stands in the great hall of the Varakino estate, at the window that faces the falls, and she lets herself feel what this place is. The sound of the water, the specific temperature of the air inside these stone walls, cooler than outside, held by the mass of the building, carrying the mineral undertone of the lake, the light on the water below, moving the way water moves when it is being itself completely, without instruction. She breathes it in once, completely, then she seals the door and goes to work. The EMP device is the most technically precise thing she has built in 9 years. The suit's primary power regulator operates on a 47 Hz cycle, A tuned electromagnetic pulse on that frequency will disrupt the motor function system, causing seizure lasting between 12 and 40 seconds before the backup regulation system engages. She has addressed the variance problem by wiring the estate's metallic structural framework as an amplifier. Varekino was built with Durasteel load-bearing supports beneath the sandstone facing, a Republic-era construction standard for Lake Country estates, designed to handle seismic variance. The supports form a continuous metallic mesh through the building's walls, floor, and ceiling. She has attached induction coils at 7 junction points. When the pulse fires, it will not arrive from a single point. It will arrive from every direction simultaneously, from the building itself. A distributed field that the suit's point defense systems cannot locate and single-point block. She estimates 20 to 45 seconds on the extended field. She has designed what she needs to do to fit inside 20. She installs ray shield projectors at 3 choke points and places a sensor array in the tree line along the approach path, calibrated to his mass signature. The shuttle is in the caves beneath the estate's foundation, fueled and pre-flight checked, engines cold. She can reach it from the main hall in 90 seconds at a walk. She carries one weapon, a blaster at her hip, service weight, charged. She does not plan to use it. He comes alone. She watches him on the sensor array from the moment he enters the tree line, 2 kilometers out, moving at a deliberate pace, the mass signature registering at exactly the profile she gave the detection system. His shuttle is behind him, landed at the lake road's edge where the path begins. He walked from there. This is Anakin, she thinks, not as sentiment but as tactical confirmation. Vader would have landed at the estate. Anakin always walked the last distance to a place that mattered. He stops at the flower-lined path. 4 seconds. She counts them. He stands at the section of path that runs along the eastern bank, where the lake flowering plants grow, and apparently still grow because no one has been here to remove them, and he is still for 4 seconds in a way that is different from tactical assessment stillness. Then he continues. She breathes. She goes through her inventory, EMP trigger in her left hand, blaster at her hip, relay connections confirmed active, escape route confirmed open. She reminds herself of the convoy. 3 transports carrying navigational computers, 96 hours from now, depending on this moment to pass through the outer system clean. She reminds herself of Luke, building things from desert salvage with his father's hands and his grandmother's stubbornness, not knowing yet what his hands are for. She reminds herself of Leia, making adult senators revise their positions, not knowing yet that she was born doing exactly this. She reminds herself of who she is. He reaches the gates of Varekino at dusk. The gate is open. She left it open because she knows him, because she has always known him, and Anakin Skywalker has never in his life been able to resist an open door. An open door is an invitation and a challenge simultaneously, and he has never had the capacity to decline either. Darth Vader, for all that he has layered over what Anakin was, has not changed this, cannot change this. It is load-bearing. He steps through. Inside the estate, in the great hall, sitting at the dinner table in the chair she used to sit in, with her hands folded on the table's surface and the EMP trigger in her left hand below the table's edge, Padmé hears his footsteps on the old stone floor. The rhythm of them, the weight of them, the mechanical breathing that arrives with him like a tide, filling the space, making the space his the way his presence always made spaces his, before and after. She had prepared for this moment for 2 months. She had practiced the stillness for 4 weeks. It holds. She waits. He fills the doorway the way a weather system fills a horizon. She had known the dimensions of the suit from the technical files. She had built an accurate mental model of what was going to walk through that door, and the mental model was correct in every measurable particular, and it is still not the same as the room changing when he enters it. The suit adds a physicality that Anakin never had, a gravity that is not force presence, but physical mass. The specific weight of a man encased in machinery that was built to keep him alive and ended up making him into something the room has to accommodate. He is larger than Anakin was. The helmet reads the space differently than a human face does. No micro-expressions, no instinctive tells, just the black lens, catching the candlelight and returning nothing. But the way he stops, The specific quality of the stillness when he sees her, she had not modeled this, because you cannot model it from technical files. It is the stillness of someone who has been hit with something they were not fully prepared for despite being entirely prepared for it. It is Anakin's stillness. The breathing fills the room. Mechanical. Rhythmic. The most impersonal sound she has encountered in 19 years of encountering impersonal things, carrying the most personal weight she has ever been in the same room with. He says her name. Just her name. One word. And underneath the modulator's frequency processing, underneath the layers of imperial engineering designed to make the voice into an instrument of institutional authority, she hears it. The cadence. The specific distribution of weight across the syllables of her name as he has always said it, since he was 19 years old and saying it for the first time like a question and an answer simultaneously. She had prepared for this. She sits very still and lets the cost of it pass through her and settle, and then she looks at him across the table with the expression of a woman who has been waiting for this conversation for 4 months. "I wondered when you'd figure it out," she says. He steps into the room and she shows him one finger, not a gesture, simply her hand with the index finger extended. And he stops. The reflex is immediate, deeper than thought, running on a channel that 19 years and the full weight of the dark side have not reached. She notes the confirmation and files it. "The table," she says. "Sit down." He does not sit. He stands at the room's center and looks at her. The candlelight moves across the black helmet in long, slow waves. "You're dead," he says. The modulator compresses everything, but she hears the thing underneath, not certainty. The sound of a fact that has just become unstable. "I was," she says. "It was convenient for a while. How long?" "Since Polis Massa. The children were the variable Palpatine didn't account for. I held them, and I didn't die. It was that simple, and that complicated. The children." His voice has gone to something she cannot fully read. "They are alive," she says. "And safe. And you are not going to find them, so remove that from your calculations. You've been fighting the Empire. Not a question. For 9 years. The Vela network." He says it with something that might be the modulated ghost of disbelief. "You built it. I built it. Alone. With assistance. But the architecture is mine." He moves then, not toward her, sideways, a slow circuit of the room's perimeter that she recognizes immediately as Anakin's processing movement. When something was too large to think through standing still, he moved. He paced. He needed his body engaged to let his mind work. She watches him make the circuit and does not track him with her eyes. Because tracking him with her eyes would tell him he is unsettling her, and he is not unsettling her, and she will not hand him information she is not choosing to give. "Garrel," he says. He has stopped moving. He is at the room's far end, facing her. "That was you. That was me. The ISB files. Copied clean. Your transport crew found the anomaly approximately 6 hours later. By then, the information was already in use. The breathing." She waits. "You were in the system," he says, "while I was at the depot. I wasn't in the system. My team was. I was on the moon, managing the communications array." She lets him hear that. "I wanted you to feel it personally. I needed you to know that someone had read you before you finished setting the board. I needed that specific response, not just the operational result. You needed me focused on you. I needed you focused on me instead of ISP. ISP is methodical. ISP uses pattern recognition. ISP was 4 inferences from my real identity and getting closer on a timeline I couldn't control. You're faster, and less accurate, and easier to manage." She says this without inflection, as one professional assessing another. "You've been displacing their investigation for months. The network has operated in the space your personal attention creates. You've been protecting me without knowing you were doing it. The room processes this. He is still. I should take you now," he says. "Bring you to the Emperor. The operation ends." "You should," she agrees. "Operationally, that's the correct decision." She looks at him. "You're not going to." The breathing. In Out. Why, he says, very quietly. Are you certain of that? She stands. Not quickly. With the unhurried deliberateness of a person who has spoken before the full Republic Senate, who has held rooms with nothing but the quality of her conviction and the precision of her language. She looks at the helmet where his eyes would be. When Anakin loved me, she says, he was afraid I would leave him. That fear was real. I'm not dismissing it. Fear that real comes from somewhere real, and I know where it came from. The desert. The years before anyone chose him. The specific damage of a childhood spent being exceptional and expendable simultaneously. She lets him hear that land. But Palpatine found that fear, and used it as a door, and Anakin walked through it, because walking through it felt like strength, like finally being willing to do what others were too weak to do. She does not move. The man I loved would have died rather than let harm come to one child on Tatooine. Darth Vader stood by while hundreds of children were killed in a temple, children who had been brought there by parents who trusted the Republic their parents had trusted. A pause, precise and deliberate. Don't tell me they were necessary. Don't tell me Anakin is still in there somewhere waiting to be recovered. I can see what's in there. I can smell the smoke from here. The breathing in the room, rhythmic and relentless and completely involuntary, the mechanical system keeping him alive whether he wants it to or not. Anakin Skywalker did not die on Mustafar from his wounds. He died there because he chose to. Because he chose what you are instead of what he was. I'm not absolved of my part in that. I have spent 9 years taking inventory of every conversation where I saw the warning and smoothed it over, every moment where I prioritized the marriage over the truth. She holds his gaze, or the place where his gaze would be. But Palpatine engineered the conditions. And Anakin still had to choose. And he chose. She has not raised her voice. She has not needed to. You want to destroy Palpatine. I know you do. It's in his operational reports, the specific way your initiative degrades when he micromanages you. You hate him. She says this simply. So do I. But not with you. Not by becoming the other half of the same machine. Whatever comes after the Empire, whatever the galaxy gets to be when this is finally over, it will not begin with me standing next to you. The silence after is different from the silence before. He extends his hand toward her, not a forced gesture. Something older than the suit, older than the dark side, older than everything that has happened since Tatooine. A gesture so specific to who he was before, that it arrives in the room like a transmission from 19 years ago, slightly corrupted by the distance. Come with me. We can still know, she says. The air changes. She has been tracking this from the moment he entered, the specific barometric quality of grief in its movement toward rage. Not performed rage, not the institutional fury he deploys as an imperial instrument. The real thing. The pressure of 19 years in a sealed chamber finding a hairline fracture and beginning, slowly, to move through it. He steps toward her. One step. She does not retreat. She stands exactly where she is, and looks at him with the full weight of everything she has decided about who she is, and she does not give him the step backward he needs her to take. He stops. She looks at him for a long moment, not at the suit, not at the helmet, not at the imperial machinery, at him, at what the candlelight catches and what it doesn't, at the breathing that has not stopped and will not stop, and is the most honest thing in this room, because it cannot lie, it can only continue. She looks at him the last time as something that holds her grief, as the place where Anakin Skywalker ended and this story began. I'm sorry, Anakin. Her voice is quiet, completely steady. I'm sorry I wasn't enough to save you, but you're not going to unmake what I've built. Her left hand moves to the trigger beneath the table's edge. She triggers the device. The first pulse hits the suit and the suit absorbs it. The primary protection system doing exactly what it was engineered to do. She sees him register it, sees the slight shift in his stance that means he has identified an attack vector and is already responding, already moving. Then the estate responds. The induction coils at all 7 junction points fire simultaneously, channeling the amplified pulse through the Durasteel load-bearing framework, through the walls and the floor and the ceiling, through the structural skeleton of the building itself, surrounding the suit in a distributed field arriving from every direction at once. There is no single point to block. The suit's protection systems were not designed for this geometry. Vader goes down. Not gracefully. His motor system sees mid-motion. He has taken one step toward her, hand still extended, and the seizure catches him between strides. He goes down hard. One knee first, the impact against the stone floor carrying a weight she feels through the vibration, and then both hands, the mechanical fingers spreading against the flagstones as the system tries and fails to find its footing. The lightsaber drops. It rolls 2 meters and stops. Blade unlit. Inert. The breathing. She has heard his breathing for the entire length of this conversation, tracking the rhythm for variations that might signal what the modulated voice conceals. Now the rhythm is wrong. The respiratory regulator is fighting the pulse disruption, cycling through its emergency protocols in rapid sequence, each cycle failing to establish the clean rhythm before the next begins. It is not the sound of a system managing a malfunction. It is the sound of a man drowning in the equipment that is supposed to keep him alive, something human surfacing through the engineering, something that has been compressed under 19 years of institutional machinery and is audible now in the gap the disruption has opened. She is standing 3 meters away with her blaster drawn. She does not remember drawing it. He is on the floor and he cannot move, and he is looking at her. She can feel the direction of his attention as a physical thing, the force oriented on her like a compass finding north, and he is waiting to see what she does. She does not shoot. She holds the position for 3 full seconds, which is longer than she needs and shorter than she wants, because there is a version of her, not a hypothetical version, an actual version, present in this room right now, that is looking at the man on the floor and running the calculation and finding it very clean. The suit's vulnerabilities. The window. The blaster in her hand already drawn and charged. She knows the calculation. She ran it. She ran it 4 months ago when she began building this operation, and she ran it again when she wired the estate. And she ran it a final time last night in the dark of the cave where the shuttle is waiting, and the answer is the same every time. She crouches. Not close enough for him to reach. She has calculated the suit's arm extension and added 40 centimeters, but close enough for this to be a choice rather than a precaution. She speaks to him in a voice she has not used in this way since Coruscant, not softer than her operational voice. Cleaner. I read your maintenance reports, Anakin. She watches his hands on the stone floor, the mechanical fingers pressing against the flagstones with the involuntary pressure of a system trying to re-establish function. I know every component that keeps you alive. I know the 47 Hz cycle. I know the backup regulation window. I know the thermal limits and the electrical vulnerabilities and the specific points where the infrastructure fails under sufficient load. She holds his attention. I calibrated this to stop your motor function. I could have calibrated it to stop your heart. The specifications are in the same document. She stands. I didn't. She walks to the exit. Her footsteps on the stone floor are even, unhurried, the pace of a woman who has accomplished what she came to accomplish and has a shuttle to catch. The blaster goes back to her hip. The EMP trigger goes into her jacket pocket. She reaches the doorway and pauses with her back to him. Behind her, the breathing continues its damaged rhythm, the regulator still cycling, working toward the clean mechanical pulse that will return when the backup system completes its re-establishment sequence. She has time. Palpatine will want to know why you didn't capture me, she says. Tell him whatever you need to tell him. A pause. You're very good at that. She steps through the door. She stops once, outside. She had not planned this. She reaches into her jacket, the inner pocket, left side, where she has carried it for 19 years, through the staged death and the alias construction, and the 9 years of cells and dead drops and operational decisions. Through Gorel and the ISP files and the cipher wheel, and the 4 months of building this trap. The Japor snippet is warm from her body heat. It is always warm. It has spent 19 years against her skin, and it holds warmth the way the wood it is made from holds everything. Without effort, without decision, simply as a property of its composition. She holds it for a moment. She turns it over. She feels the carved edges, the slight irregularity where a 9-year-old's tools were not quite precise enough, the specific texture of something made by hand with intention and without complete skill, which gives it a quality that perfect things do not have. She sets it on the floor just inside the doorway. She positions it where he will see it when his motor functions return, where he will have to see it before he can do anything else, because it will be the first thing at his eye level when he raises his head from the stone floor. It was his. It should go back to what remains of him. She walks. The cellar hatch is exactly where she left it. The shuttle sits in the dark with the patient stillness of a well-maintained machine that has been told to wait and has been waiting. She runs the pre-ignition sequence by feel, hands moving across the controls without needing to look. 41 seconds from hatch to engine warm. She does not rush. She walks to the shuttle at the same pace she walked through the estate. Because running changes the quality of what just happened, turns it into flight, and she is not fleeing. She accomplished what she came to accomplish. The exit is part of the operation, not a departure from it. The engines warm in 40 seconds. She is airborne in under 2 minutes, the shuttle rising through the cave mouth and out over the lake. The Varricino estate behind her growing small in the exterior camera feed, the lit windows, the open gate, the path along the water where the flowers still grow. She looks at the altimeter and the heading and the nav system, cycling through the jump calculation for the outer system rendezvous. He gets to his feet at 41 seconds. The backup system completes its re-establishment sequence at the high end of her projected window. The suit runs its damage assessment. He ignores it. He rises in the specific way of a system coming back online rather than a person choosing to stand. He turns. The Japper snippet is on the floor at the threshold of the doorway. He goes to it very slowly. He crosses the distance between himself and the doorway in the specific way of a person approaching something they are not certain they can afford to reach. He picks it up. The mechanical hand closes around it with a grip calibrated for precision work. The haptic sensors registering the dimensions, the mass, the surface texture in the language of data. It is 12 centimeters long. It weighs 43 grams. The surface composition is Jaipur ivory, approximately 19 years of age since carving. These are the things the suit tells him. The suit does not tell him the weight of it before. In flesh, in the hand that carved it, in the 9-year-old fingers that worked these edges with tools too large for them because he had decided he was going to make something for her, and had not yet learned that deciding to make something and having the right tools for it were different problems. The suit does not tell him what it meant to place it around her neck, on a transport going the wrong direction, away from everything he had ever known, into a future he could not see, but had decided to trust, because she was in it. The suit does not tell him any of this. His body does. Whatever is left beneath the suit that was once a nervous system carries it, encoded below the interface layer. Below the engineering, in whatever tissue still holds the memory of the making, he stands in the doorway of the estate with it in his mechanical hand, and he does not move for a very long time. In orbit, at the system's outer edge, running with minimal power signatures through the dark between stars, 3 rebel transports complete their transit of the Naboo outer system without incident. The Imperial Star Destroyer holds geosynchronous position above the capital. Its sensors are not running active sweeps. The order to stand down and hold position came from Vader personally, transmitted 2 hours ago from the surface, and no officer on that bridge has any intention of questioning it. The transports slide through the quiet outer system one by one, running silent. Their cargo of navigational computers sitting in the hold in the dark, waiting to be installed in ships that will use them to go places the Empire cannot follow. They jump to hyperspace at 2317. Inside the cockpit of a shuttle already deep in the jump corridor, Padmé sits for a moment after the hyperspace transition completes. The viewport is blue-white and streaming. She looks at the empty jacket pocket. The inner left pocket, which has carried the same 43 grams for 19 years and is now simply fabric. Simply lining. She closes it. She allows herself a moment more, the specific quiet of a completed thing, the weight of what just happened settling into its permanent place in the architecture of what her life has been. She does not name it. It will be there whether she names it or not. Then she pulls up the convoy's transit confirmation codes on the navigation display, and she finds them. 3 green confirmations, All 3 transports through the outer system clean, all 3 already in hyperspace, and she reads them twice, and then she begins composing her operational report. The work continues. His officers meet him in the hangar bay with the careful, professional neutrality of people who have served under him long enough to have developed a finely calibrated instinct for the quality of his silences. This silence is a category they have not encountered before, and the instinct that has kept them alive under his command tells them unanimously that the correct response is to be useful and unobtrusive and to wait. At the corridor junction leading to his personal quarters, he pauses. The intelligence was falsified, he says. The coordinator escaped. Resume standard patrol patterns. And the follow-up pursuit, my lord? There is no follow-up. He continues down the corridor and the door to his quarters seals behind him, and on the bridge of the inexorable, no one says anything for a very long time. And then they all begin doing their jobs with great focus and do not stop until their shifts end. The degradation is not dramatic. Darth Vader does not stop functioning. He does not fail to execute orders when they are given. He breathes. He commands. He moves through the Imperial machinery with the same dark authority that has defined his presence in it for 19 years. But his staff can feel it. The mission planning is slower, not by much, but his tactical officers have spent years operating to the rhythm of his decision cycles. And the half-second hesitation that has entered his operational briefings is as legible to them as a fault line in familiar terrain. He loses the thread twice in a senior staff meeting and has to have material repeated. The 2 officers who witness this exchange a look they immediately decide never happened. He sends 4 tactical queries to his intelligence staff that go nowhere. One about the medical records from Polis Massa in 19BB, sealed by Imperial Executive Order, above his access level without the Emperor's specific authorization. He does not request that authorization. He closes the query. One about the Lars homestead on Tatooine. He looks at the Lars query for 11 minutes, then closes it without sending it. He does not open it again. At night he holds the Japor snippet. His officers do not know this, but the haptic sensors in the suit's left hand register the object's dimensions and mass in the continuous passive monitoring the suit performs on everything it contacts, and the data is logged automatically to the suit's maintenance record with the timestamp and duration of each contact. 43 grams, 12 centimeters, Japor, ivory. Every night, 2 hours minimum, once 4.5 hours. The maintenance system does not note this as anomalous. It is not designed to flag the emotional significance of recurring contact with a 43-gram object. It logs mass and material composition and duration and moves on. Palpatine summons him on the 11th day. The Emperor is in his private chamber, high in the Imperial Palace. Vader kneels. He has been kneeling in this room for 19 years. His knees do not feel the floor. Palpatine does not speak immediately. He is reading the Force the way a physician reads a scan, moving through Vader's emotional architecture with the surgical precision of someone who built most of it, and knows where every chamber is and what is supposed to be inside each one. He finds the door that was not there 11 days ago. It is not a small door. It is a sealed pressure door with heat coming off its edges in the Force. The specific thermal signature of a chamber that has been under enormous internal pressure for a very long time and has recently been exposed to a catalyst that the pressure management system cannot compensate for. He understands before Vader says a word. She is alive. She is operational. She reached him, reached past the conditioning and the armor and the 19 years of managed pressure, and found what is still there, and used it with the precision of someone who knows exactly what it is and what it can do to the instrument he has spent 2 decades constructing. She must be managed. Carefully, not eliminated publicly, not turned into the mythology that a martyr creates. Not handled in any way that the rebellion can use to build the narrative she has apparently been building for 9 years. Managed, he has ISP supervisors who need new assignments. He has inquisitors who need direction. He has 100 instruments available to him, and the patience of a man who has been executing plans on decade-long timelines since before most of the people currently serving the Empire were born. My friend, Palpatine says, His voice carries the precise warmth it has carried since Anakin Skywalker was 19 years old and traumatized and in need of a particular kind of attention. You carry something heavy. It is managed, Master, of course. A pause. And yet, Palpatine descends the steps from the throne with the slow, deliberate movement of a man who is very old and very powerful, and sees no reason to hurry because time moves at his pace, rather than the reverse. Grief is the price of power, he says. The door must remain closed, Lord Vader. The Empire requires your full capacity. The door is closed, Vader says. Palpatine looks at him for a long moment. Behind his expression, the calculation runs. She is alive. She is operational. She reached him, reached past the conditioning and the armor and the 19 years of managed pressure, and found what is still there, and used it with the precision of someone who knows exactly what it is and what it can do. She is the most dangerous person in the galaxy to the stability of everything he has built. He places his hand on Vader's shoulder. The gesture is practiced. It has always been practiced. It has never stopped working, which is the thing about the tools you build early. They outlast your ability to believe in them. Come, he says. There is work to do. He manages Vader back toward functional operation with dark side pressure and grandfatherly warmth applied in precise alternation, and it works, because it has always worked. Because the architecture he built was thorough. But his hand on Vader's shoulder registers something it did not register 11 days ago. The structure beneath is the same. The responsiveness to the instruments is the same. The compliance is slightly slower. By a fraction. He notes this. He does not show that he notes it. He files it and continues, and does not allow himself to examine what it means that the finest instrument he has ever built now has, somewhere in its mechanism, the specific resistance of a machine that has been reminded it was once something else. 3 rebel cells that have been operating under sustained Imperial pressure go quiet in the weeks that follow. Not quiet because they have been destroyed. Quiet because the pursuit has simply stopped arriving. Without Vader's personal attention driving their operational tempo, the bureaucratic machinery slows to its natural pace, which is considerably slower. The cells regroup. They resupply. They establish a communications relay they have been trying to establish for 4 months. They continue. Supervisor Seth Marin completes his reassessment of the Vela network and files his recommendation. Operational tempo unchanged. No indication of compromise. He recommends reclassification from active elimination priority to long-term monitoring, a lower resource allocation, a longer surveillance cycle, a patience-based approach rather than an active interdiction strategy. The recommendation is approved. He returns to his desk and opens the next file. She is at the coordination hub when Bail's confirmation arrives, the convoy's navigational computers delivered to the fleet, installed and operational, 3 new hyperspace routes now available to Alliance vessels. 3 cells stabilized. Is pressure reduced across the sector. Vader's interdiction tempo measurably degraded. Then Bail adds the personal paragraph. He cannot help it. After 9 years, he still cannot help it. I told Leia about the trade route this morning, the logistics of it, not the source. She asked 6 questions I couldn't answer and 1 I could, and the one I could answer she had already answered herself by the time I opened my mouth. Luke apparently fixed a moisture evaporator last week that Owen had written off as unrecoverable. Owen didn't ask how. I think Owen has learned not to ask how. She reads this. She allows herself the 30 seconds. She counts them. She lets Leia's 6 questions be real. She lets the moisture evaporator be real. The image of a boy on a desert world with his father's hands and his grandmother's stubbornness, fixing what everyone else has given up on, not knowing yet that this is exactly what he is for. 30 seconds. She closes the dispatch. She wakes at 0700. She moves to the communication desk. She opens the cipher queue and begins composing orders, the Lothal cell's repositioning, the Rhodia contact's next scheduled dead drop, the customs officer assessment flagged for 3 more weeks of observation before approach. Her operational patterns are unchanged. Her cells will receive the same quality of planning they received yesterday and the day before. Nothing in her professional output will tell anyone who reads it that anything has shifted. She has simply added to her analytical database one significant new variable. The Emperor's monster has a name, and she knows every word of it, and she is going to build the rest of her war around what she knows. She is alone at night. The tactical display covers the far wall of the operations room, the full galactic map. The Empire's red markers dense across the core and the mid-rim, and thinning toward the outer rim where the Alliance's small, careful blue holds in the spaces between. Fragile and specific and alive. She looks at it for a long time. She cannot save him. She made her peace with this in the doorway of Veracino, when she said the true things out loud and watched them land, and understood that landing is not the same as changing. What is inside that suit made its choice 19 years ago on a volcanic shore, and she has grieved that choice for 9 years with the discipline of a woman who does not permit herself the luxury of grieving publicly. And she is done with the acute phase of it now. The grief remains. It will always remain in the specific way that true losses remain, not as emergency, but as the permanent altered topology of a person who has been through something that cannot be undone. She grieves it. She puts it down. She picks up the work. She cannot be Padmé Amidala publicly again. That woman was buried on Naboo with white flowers in her hair and the genuine grief of a planet that loved her, and Padmé Amidala is gone in all the ways that matter to the Empire's record-keeping. What remains is Vela. What remains is the architect. She reaches out to the tactical display. The map responds to her touch. Systems highlighted. Routes illuminated. The small blue network of the early Alliance rendered in light against the Empire's overwhelming red. She selects a system on the mid-rim. A planetary governor whose ISB file she now holds, whose cooperation with the Empire she now knows is conditional rather than ideological, whose private communications suggest he is waiting for the calculation to change. She begins to move pieces. She is building the thing Palpatine cannot comprehend, not because it is beyond his intelligence. He is not a man whose intelligence has limits she can find, but because it is beyond his imagination. He cannot conceive of an opponent who is not fighting him, who is not trying to defeat the Empire in the field, not trying to match its military capacity, not trying to find and exploit a single catastrophic weakness that brings the structure down in one decisive moment. He is not looking for a woman who is building the architecture of his institution's failure from the inside, at the molecular level, one cell and one governor, and one communications aid and one hyperspace route at a time. Who understands that absolute power does not fall, it compounds its own errors until the errors become catastrophic, and the work is to accelerate that compounding, to be the interest on a debt he does not know he is paying. Somewhere a boy is growing up on a desert world believing himself ordinary, with his father's instincts and his grandmother's stubbornness and capabilities that Owen Lars has learned not to ask about. Somewhere a girl is learning to be a senator and a daughter, and something else entirely, something that has no name yet, because the moment that will require it has not arrived. They don't know what they carry. She cannot tell them. Their ignorance is the last protection she can give them, and she gives it completely, without reservation, as the final act of the mother she has not been allowed to be in any other form. But they are alive. They are growing. And when the galaxy is finally ready, when the architecture she is building has done enough of its work, when the Empire's compounded failures have reached the threshold she is accelerating toward, they will step into that moment with everything they are. She is building them a galaxy worth stepping into. She opens a new cipher document. She begins composing the approach. She is Vela. She is the ghost in Palpatine's machine, the variable he did not account for. The thing he made by accident when he used her as a weapon and did not consider what the weapon would become once it understood what it had been used for. She is the mother of the rebellion, and she is the architect of the Empire's end, and she has work to do. The display glows blue in the dark. The work continues. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.